Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, guys, the Leafs really set us up, eh? The Maple Leafs playing a rested Florida Panthers team on the second half of a back-to-back. You could have circled this game for absolute nightmare 2 months ago, but they come in after dismantling the Tampa Bay Lightning the night before, and they find themselves up 5-1 early in the second period. And then, like I said, it's a game that you could have circled on the schedule months ago for a potential disaster to take place, but you're up 5-1, and then Erik Källgren gets run into really hard and looks like he's going to leave the game, but he stays in, and then he catches a puck off of like the collarbone or the neck or the jaw area. He's stunned, according to Sheldon Keefe, and he's forced to leave the game, which forces Jack Campbell to come in after playing the night before in a 5-3 game, I believe, with a couple minutes remaining in the second period. And maybe that's when the fatigue starts setting in. Maybe you take 1, 2, 3 too many penalties than what you would have liked to. I mean, the Mark Giordano holding penalty, the too many men on the ice penalty, the Kyle Clifford slash, those are all huge momentum killers. And the Panthers don't have the greatest power play this year, but then they go out and add Claude Giroux at the deadline. They're the number one offensive team in the NHL. They're going to take advantage of the scoring opportunities that you give to them, and they did. The Maple Leafs blow a 5-1 lead in Jake Muzzin's first game back since February the 21st. They paired him with Justin Holl. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the video, but in 10 days, the Maple Leafs take 7 out of a possible 8 points from teams like the Boston Bruins, who are 17-3-1 in their last 21 games, the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are the two-time defending Stanley Cup champions, and then 3 out of 4 points against the Florida Panthers. They blew a 5-1 lead, but I'm having a hard time complaining about that. And then post-game, Sheldon Keefe saying that Erik Källgren was stunned, like we mentioned before, but apparently he's fine now. And that's huge, because with Peter Mrazek out for the rest of the regular season and Joseph Woll out with an injury right now as well, the next man up would be Michael Hutchinson. At 5-on-5, I didn't think that Jake Muzzin or Justin Holl played particularly bad. They were only on the ice for 1 goal against at 5-on-5, but it was on the penalty kill where they played quite a bit of ice time together that they were on the ice for 3 goals against. Let's take a look at them. And look, this is the deal. Within the hundreds of hours of content that I've uploaded on YouTube, I'm not going to be right all the time. In my previous video, it just so happened to work out that I said a few nice things about Justin Holl, and then he proceeded to play 2 of his worst games in like 2 months. This is Florida's first goal, and mind you, it did come on the power play, but that's Sam Reinhart standing in front of the net there. That is not vintage Thomas Holmstrom, and Justin Holl's basically breathing down his neck the entire time and does nothing. That's one of the easiest goals Sam Reinhart's probably scored in his entire career. This next one's another Panthers power play. And mind you, the Maple Leafs penalty kill has been awesome all season, and Justin Holl has been a pretty large part of that, but specifically in this game, with him and Jake Muzzin on the ice, it was garbage. So the play starts with the puck along the boards here. There's 3 Maple Leafs and 3 Panthers battling for it, but then it squirts free to the point, and it's going to come down low to Barkov, and he's going to pass it over to Sam Reinhart, who proceeds to just score the second easiest goal in his entire career. I mean, I really don't know what you want Jake Muzzin to do here. Yeah, he could have gotten his stick into the passing lane, but that would have been a really, really nice defensive play if he was able to pull that off. And then Källgren makes the initial save, but then Sam Reinhart's able to get another whack at it, and he scores there. That can't happen. There's no support in front of the net. In my mind, when we're looking at this goal, Sam Reinhart is able to go from one side of the offensive zone across the crease to the other side, where he eventually scores this goal. But if we're looking at this freeze frame and you see where Justin Holl is, he was involved for the battle along the boards for the puck, but I would have really liked to have seen him been standing where Sam Reinhart is right now, because he could have stopped him from getting to the front of the net. This is another penalty killing situation that involves Jake Muzzin and Justin Holl, and after a battle along the boards, it looks like Marner's going to get an opportunity to clear this puck out, but Barkov's going to get his stick in, Marner's going to kind of trip up over himself, and the Panthers are going to regain possession. But I want you to note where all the Maple Leaf penalty killers are when the Panthers first regain possession of this puck. Because in the very next frame here, Jake Muzzin, this is way too aggressive on this play. And I know the Maple Leafs have an aggressive penalty kill, but if you're looking at this next freeze frame here, Jake is trailing his man at this point, and if he wouldn't have been at the top of the face-off circle, instead maybe if he was at the dot, he would have been even with him, And it wouldn't have been a situation where Reinhart gets a puck on net and then Huberdeau is able to just tap it in on Jack Campbell. And I don't mean to make it sound like I'm ripping into Jake Muzzin in his first game back after he had 2 concussions basically back to back. I'm just saying maybe the decision to play him with Justin Holl and as much as they did and on the penalty kill when both guys have been awful together this season, quite frankly, a lot worse when playing together and better without each other, probably wasn't the greatest one. We talked about it at length in the previous video, but we spoke about the chemistry that the Maple Leafs have been able to find on their blue line, especially since acquiring Mark Giordano, and we touched on the risks that you run in possibly disrupting that by adding a guy like Jake Muzzin back in there. There was a quote from him after he came back from the first concussion that he suffered where he talked about being hesitant to play the game that he needs to in order to be successful, and that's a physical one. So you're not just adding a guy in who's coming back from injury, but it's a confidence thing as well. I saw a lot of people ripping on the decision to play Jake Muzzin in that game against the Florida Panthers, coming back from 2 concussions this year. And since I really don't have an opinion on the matter, I'll just play devil's advocate and say, why not play him in that game against the Florida Panthers? Because as long as he doesn't sink and just treads some water or even swims and plays well, that's a huge opportunity to build some confidence. And he scores in this game, and I don't think that he had that bad of a game himself. I think that the combination of him and Holl were really bad, but Jake Muzzin by himself, I think he was there treading water, man. And if you're able to tread water in your first game back from having 2 concussions this year against the best offensive team in the NHL, where can you go from there? Now, with Jake Muzzin going into the lineup, Ilya Lyubushkin came out. And like we said in the previous video, he suffered a neck injury on the Taylor Hall sucker punch, and he's had neck injuries in the past, and he missed a game. Justin Holl also got hit in the back of the head with a puck, but he didn't miss one. If Lyubushkin needed a day off in this one, I can understand why he was the healthy scratch, but moving forward, I don't want Ilya Lyubushkin as a healthy scratch because you're looking at all those goals that happened in front of the net, and that's where Ilya Lyubushkin shines. That's his department, is moving guys from the front of the net. And I tweeted this out the other night. You know who the Leafs could really use right now? Ilya Lyubushkin, literally one of the lowest event players in the entire NHL on either side of the puck. He brings that track meet to an absolute halt. And if you're thinking to yourself, Steven, how could one player slow down a game like that drastically? Well, my favorite stat from earlier in the year is that in that 10-7 win over the Detroit Red Wings, him and Rasmus Sandin were on the ice for over 15 minutes together and were only on the ice for 1 goal for and 0 goals against. Moving forward until Rasmus Sandin gets back, I would really consider going with Morgan Rielly, Ilya Lyubushkin, Jake Muzzin, TJ Brodie, and Mark Giordano, Timothy Liljegren. I know I want to see Mark Giordano and TJ Brodie play together too, but you just can't break up Giordano and Liljegren right now. If you're looking at the micro stats from this game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, which happened just the night before, it feels like a week ago almost, but the shot attempts, the actual shots, the scoring opportunities, the high danger shot attempts, and even the expected goals, fairly even in this one. But in a goaltending matchup between Andrei Vasilevskiy and Jack Campbell absolutely stood on his head in that game, and Vasilevskiy looked very, very human. And if Matthews had only scored 2 goals in that game, the main story coming out of it would have been how well Jack Campbell played, but Matthews decided to nonchalantly add in the hat trick and tie Rick Vive's single-season Maple Leafs goal-scoring record with 54 goals now. And just to put this into perspective, because in the first half of this season, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, they were playing good, but they've found an entire new level since then, and both players are on pace to crack 100 points this year, and if they do so, that would be the first time in Maple Leafs history that they ever had 2 players score 100 points in a single season. The closest they've ever come to having 2 players scoring 100 points is 93-94 when Doug Gilmour had 111 and Dave Andreychuk had 99. But they both did it having played 83 games, and the most that Matthews can play this year is 77, and the most that Marner can play is 73. After games against Boston, Tampa, 2 against Florida, all coming in the span of 10 days, Sheldon keeps saying he was looking at where the Leafs are at, and at this stretch of games, and whether or not they can compete with the best teams in the division. And his answer to that question after these stretch of games is unequivocally yes. And I gotta agree with him because they took 7 out of a possible 8 points. And if you want to be mad about them blowing the 5-1 lead on the second half of a back-to-back in a game where their goalie got hurt, I mean, There's no back-to-back games in the playoffs, and if there are, both teams are at the same disadvantage. The flaws that this Leafs team has get talked about a lot, but what I don't hear are flaws of other teams. You know, the Tampa Bay Lightning went through like a 2-week period around the deadline where no one was scoring goals for them. The Florida Panthers, Bobrovsky allowed 5 goals in this game, 6 goals in the game before and got chased. And yeah, Spencer Knight came in and played well in relief, but he just got called up from the American Hockey League a couple of weeks ago. And they doubled down on their situation at the deadline and spent a bunch of first round picks and prospects. And their team is really good, but so are the Toronto Maple Leafs. And Jack Campbell coming in playing the night before against the Lightning and having the game that he did. Yeah, he let in a couple of goals that maybe you would have liked him to have had against the Florida Panthers, but he also made some incredible saves. That game was a track meet in front of him, and he was set up to fail, but he kept them in it. And the Bruins, who we mentioned earlier, who are 17-3-1 in their last 21 games, had to break up their best scoring line of Marchand, Bergeron, and Pastrnak to create 2 scoring lines for themselves. Otherwise, they're a one-line team. They lost David Krejci in the offseason, and they never really replaced him. Every team has flaws. Yes, doing it in the playoffs is different, but doing it now definitely doesn't hurt how we feel going into them. So like it's been basically all season, it's still a wait-and-see scenario with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But at the same time, there's a lot of reasons to be happy with what's going on right now. If I missed anything in this video or I didn't do that great of a job explaining myself here and there, my apologies. I've just been very busy with the school semester, wrapping up in a couple of weeks. I graduate, and I'm filming this video at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I have class the next day at 9, so I should probably just go to bed. But if when I get home, it's going to be like 2 o'clock, and there's a game tonight as well, so if I don't do it now, then when am I going to get it up? That, you know what? I'm leaving that in. I don't care. Make sure to like the video if you did like it and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And guys, I will see you again in the next one.